appreciate everybody making some time for us. Appreciate you guys being here, and obviously interest in our soccer is still continuing to build, and we're excited about it. The latest development obviously is with our schedule and getting it completed. There may be one addition that would be very late in the schedule, but just wanted to let people know that we've been making some serious progress with not only our schedule, but with our team, and some progress on all fronts. The excitement obviously is with the first collegiate soccer game that will ever be in Carbondale will be on Saturday, August 17th against SEMO. So, you know, renewing the war of the wheel now with women's soccer, I think, is going to be something that the fan base can be excited about, as well as the fanfare of having our initial soccer match in Carbondale. The other part of that is it's also a welcome weekend, so there's just going to be lots of fanfare and excitement about the new year, and it just gives us a great platform in which we can start to do some work and show people what Saluki soccer is going to be about. And then the official home opener will be then the following Friday on the 23rd against UI Springfield. Of the 18 matches that we have confirmed, 17 of those are Division I opponents. Springfield is our only non-Division I opponent. Of those 18 that we have scheduled, 10 of those participated in postseason play in their own conferences this year, and then we have one team that participated in the NCAA tournament, making it to the second round. So I think from a schedule perspective, it's going to give us everything that we need to prepare ourselves for what will eventually be a 2020 season and the joining of the Missouri Valley and postseason play being open and available to us. We've been able to have the breadth of the season from when we start in August all the way through the end of October, and potentially that last game maybe in November. So being able to replicate what the season is going to be like, we've been able to check all of those boxes from giving our teams that first go-round.
Will you play all your games at Saluki Stadium or at your field?
We'll be down at the field at the track and soccer complex.
Grant, did you find that schools wanted to play a startup program, or no?
That was really never part of the equation. The only time it really came up with a startup was just in me trying to get games after people started conference play in that mid to late September and beyond, and then just recognizing what the challenge was going to be for us to have meaningful games and keeping our kids engaged in getting better throughout the fall. Good thing is that, again, my regional connections with those coaches in this area, and then I also in my back pocket knew that with some of those Ohio Valley Conference schools that they would have a bye, so I could preface the conversation with, hey, when's your bye weekend? You couldn't kind of slip by knowing that they didn't have one. With a couple of additions with Colorado College, Texas Rio Grande, and Dartmouth, those were just kind of one-off situations where they had a date that was available, and it just seemed to work out for us, so I'm very thankful with that.
Did you end up with a better schedule or a worse schedule than anticipated?
Actually, I think it's very, very appropriate from the amount of travel that we have, having balance. That was probably one of the bigger concerns, was one, balance, having teams that were going to come here to play us, and then also just getting games from that mid-September point on. So, you know, looking at the strength of our schedule, there's a stretch there when you would start conference play that I think is really going to challenge us from a quality perspective and giving us some challenges. But no, I think it's very appropriate for what will then prepare us for our 2020
Will we
season.
be competing as an independent this year then? Well, do the games actually count, or is it just all exhibition?
Yeah, I mean, they'll count towards our record, and from that first match that happens on the 23rd, those wins and losses will count. There's just no postseason play eligible for us.
So we don't have any MVC teams on here at all?
That is correct, and that was for me a calculated endeavor, just that I didn't want there to be any predisposition, good or bad, about when games really started to matter for us in 2020. So, you know, if we go and we smash somebody, doesn't mean that that's going to happen next year, or vice versa. If we take one on the chin, it didn't mean that that was going to happen the following year. So I think going into 2020 with our eyes wide open and excited about the opportunity, I think is going to be a benefit for us. So we'll find out next year.
When do you anticipate you'll be playing Dartmouth? When your last game will be?
So that one will be the October 22nd. I still have Cal Baptist is the team that I'm waiting to hear to see if their administration is going to sign off on them coming here, and that would be the first weekend in November. And for me, that's ideal because that's the weekend that we want to be playing in 2020, because that's our conference tournament weekend. And again, from a preparation standpoint, I think that checks all the boxes from what we're trying to do.
What will your big recruiting area be? Perhaps the Metro, St. Louis metro area, and where else?
Well, it's certainly a strength just from a proximity and St. Louis being a soccer town. So that has been someplace that we've spent some significant time in. I think if you just drew a 4-hour circle around Carbondale, and then you would, I think, also include Chicago in that, is going to be our bread and butter from a name recognition and where we're going to draw from. But we've had some success out of region, and you'll continue to go where the best possible players are. So we've had some luck in out of region, and we'll be excited when we make our class announcement, hopefully right after the first of the year.
Could you update where you are roster-wise? Do you have a full team yet?
We don't have a full team. We do have enough to play, and we are position specific. We have 15 verbal commitments, and hopefully that number will add here shortly. There are still some JUCO players and transfers that we're still looking to evaluate, and as we balance our roster with what will be a very large freshman class with then some experience and some growth and movement as we add additional classes.
How much is considered a full team? How many?
That's up to every staff and institution.
Is there a certain limit by the NCAA?
No, I mean there's from a squad limit there's no limits in that regard. I mean you play with 11, so you at least carry 11. For me, the 26 to 28 is kind of the sweet spot. It keeps things competitive. You have enough to absorb a few injuries. Goalkeeping, you can keep 3 to 4 keepers. And
will you be splitting scholarships a lot?
Yes, absolutely. That's part of the equation and making the budget work for not only the student athletes but also for us and getting the best possible quality that we can.
How are the renovations coming on the field? Will it be ready come August or?
Well, certainly with our locker room and from the coaching staff, I think the primary constituents, that part, major construction has already been completed, so that's good. We're looking at what's the plan going to be for the press box, the extension of the bleachers and those kind of things. I think that, best case scenario, yes. We'll have to kind of see how the calendar and weather and some of those things play into whether those are done.
Besides JUCOs, won't you have to get transfers in at a certain time this fall before, if they can play next year, or is there special dispensation as you're starting up with squads?
No, obviously the transfer window is just opened as the end of the regular season and postseason play for those teams that are not in the Elite Eight. The transfer portal has almost 290 women's soccer players who are transferring or open to transfer currently. There will be another batch that will happen at the end of the year for those that go through their spring. So there's kind of 2 windows in which you would look at those players who put themselves in a position to potentially transfer.
When you decided to put together the roster, what is your ideal makeup of freshmen, JUCOs, transfers?
When I originally started, I thought I was going to be in that 14 to 15 range with freshmen. It's probably going to be a little bit higher just based on numbers of goalkeepers that we'll carry. We unfortunately have already picked up an injury that we'll just kind of see timeline whether that pushes her into another class. So that probably is going to be more in the 18 to 20 range from a freshman class perspective. You hope to be 22 to 24 just from how do you play 11v11, having the goalkeepers that aren't field players and making things realistic in a training environment. So.
Except for my car, I've never started up anything.
Sure.
Do you have any special feelings about actually starting a program that's never been here before?
It's historic. My feeling is a tremendous responsibility, and I couldn't be happier to have landed where I have and having the opportunity to do that. As I mentioned when I first got hired, you always, as an assistant, I think, look at what are my opportunities to be a head coach. Those are things that I think want to do as a professional, but in any of those imaginings, I never thought that it would be a startup, and just what a unique opportunity it is to be part of the history of not only women's soccer program but also of the university is just once in a lifetime opportunity.
So you were at Evansville?
I was at Evansville.
How small is the women's soccer fraternity, whatever you would call it? You've got 10 or so schools on here that are from our region. Do you know their players?
Yeah.
I mean, that's some of their players.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Obviously, having spent 6 years at Evansville, I mean, I know their roster up and down, forwards and backwards. Obviously, if you look at just some of the other Ohio Valley schools, just regionally where I've spent my time and having coached in that conference, I'm just familiar with those coaching staffs and style of play and what goes on there. So again, there will be some familiarity in that regard. And, you know, for regional recruiting, the coaches tend to be all at those same events, so you're all looking at the same players. So yeah, there's certainly some familiarity there.
How did your relationship with Western Kentucky go into having them on the schedule next year?
That was actually the first game that I got on the schedule. Jason, obviously, I'm indebted to him for giving me my start, but he and I have become the best of friends, and it just made sense from somebody that we would see hopefully on a yearly basis. They have been traditionally very good in women's soccer. I knew would provide us a challenge, you know, and then you also want to start to establish some rivalries. You want to start to impose yourself and start to make a name regionally about getting results and doing better. So, you know, you start to look at some of those opportunities and who can you play.
What advantages have Libby Stout brought to the coaching staff?
Libby, from a just enthusiastic, you know, I had some familiarity with her and comfort level, but, you know, it's just a completely different set of eyes. She brings some, I think, fresh perspectives on players. You know, having been doing it a long time, you sometimes can get into some ruts or habits, and she looks at the game a little bit differently, one being a goalkeeper, but also having just finished her playing career. Some of those ideas, I think, are really relevant and pertinent, and some I think that we've had to adjust the difference between the pro game and the college game in women's soccer, but it certainly spurs conversation, which I think has been an awesome opportunity. From a training perspective and selling and marketing, you know, there's not a better training environment that a goalkeeper can find anywhere in the country than what we're going to have right here with Libby and her ability to train goalkeepers from her, one, just natural innate ability and having played the position, but also the level that she's played at. It's such an asset for our team.
Is there a reason, Grant, that you have opponents but not dates? Is there something I'm missing?
We don't have game contracts yet, so there can still be some shifting that goes on. It's a little bit early from a full announcement of dates and times, so this is one, I think, just an opportunity to kind of catch people up with what we're doing, and obviously we're excited about having gotten the home opener and that exhibition opener scheduled, so it was just an opportunity to kind of update people and keep us in the forefront of their mind.
When can you start working with them next year, Grant? Can you practice during the summer, or do you have a spring opportunity next year?
The July block, they could potentially come in and work with our strength staff if they were going to come to summer school and be on campus. The first week of August is the report date, so we'll start training about a week before what would be our first exhibition match. So typically that first week of August is the report date, and that's when we could officially start team training.
Have you figured out that you just can't lose to Edwardsville?
Yeah, that's been made pretty apparent everywhere around the block. And, you know, and obviously, I know Derek and have had a good relationship with him. It was one of those things that, again, from a rivalry perspective, you want to have games that are meaningful and exciting and have some fanfare and extra that go along with it. So that'll certainly be one that will give to us.
Aside from the SEMO game, I mean, which game on the schedule would you deem a rivalry game?
Well, I mean, if you look at where we are, just right in the middle of that Ohio Valley Conference, you know, anybody that's in that St. Louis metro area, when you start to look at Kentucky and in the Nashville area, I mean, those would be natural rivalries. We'll start to develop some of those when we get to Missouri Valley Conference play and start to get some of those going. But, you know, anytime that there's somebody on the schedule, you want to be able to take care of business.
When you bring a recruit in, say freshman, what are the couple things that you have to work on first? Strength? I know you have to learn that defenses and offense, but what other things besides, are they stronger in college than in high school?
It's some of it has to do with speed of the play. You know, these young guys play at high levels collegiately, but there's still an increase in the speed of play and physicality in the Division I game. So I think there's always that learning curve, and I can't take plays off that the team playing against you, regardless of what their record is motivated to beat you. And I think those are some of the things that, you know, you can be in a non-competitive high school game, or you could be in a game where your team is head and shoulders better than your opponent. There are just not many women's soccer games that are going to be that way. So I think that, wow, I've got to really apply myself every day to get better. Oh, and then when it's game time, like there's really not an opportunity for me to sit back and hit cruise control. It really is, we've got to continue to impose ourselves on the game and do well. You know, the other part then just becomes time management, you know, that mom and dad is not there to hold their hand, not that I'm not going to be there to help give them some guidance, but just there's some of those natural learning curves when they come from leaving home to being a college student. They're just going to have to learn the hard way a little bit.
I'll bet you've had to worry about time management. With an August start coming, has it gone by faster than you thought?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, for me, the biggest frustration has just been having to wait till August. You know, watching the season go by and not being able to compete and not be able to train has been something that I've sorely missed. But no, I mean, I think everything has kind of fallen into place, not necessarily easily, but things that, from a timing perspective, is all kind of happened the way that you would expect them to. Numerically, we are with where we are in our roster, having the schedule done. The 20 schedule is actually also already done, so things have continued to fall as they should. It's been a lot of time on the road. My wife is looking forward to Christmas and the holidays and our dead period so we can spend some continuous time together. But you know, that's probably been the biggest challenge is being on the road and then just correspondence with the players that you see, the coaches that you have contact with. That's probably
so you don't get any practice in the spring. You have to wait till July before you start.
Right. If we don't have any student athletes that would transfer from a university and start their second semester here in the spring, we would have to wait till August.
In terms of your recruiting, how has your game plan philosophy changed or shifted, or have you been able to find the roles you're looking for?
No, and that's where we are numerically, that we've started to really focus in on, hey, we need another central defender. Hey, we need another wide player. You go into recruiting trying to recruit athletes that will fit the system and the style that you would like to play. And for me, it's more about style than a system. The system is semantics. You're going to put 11 players out there, so is the other team, who can make adjustments as the game goes on. But from a style, like we are going to be hardworking and defensively pressing in the other team's end. Not everybody buys into what it takes to work in that. So, you know, you have to see kids demonstrate that on the field. You've got to hear them talk about wanting a competitive environment, that winning and losing is important to them. Those are the kids that will buy into a system that's going to be, in some regard, a work-related defensive effort. You know, then once you win it back, then the game should hopefully just naturally develop in a cohesive way.
How do you get students to buy into the team this inaugural season next year?
Well, I mean, I think there will be some automatic buy-in, like, hey, it's something new, let's see what women's soccer is about. I think ultimately the job that I and our staff and our players will have will just get them to keep coming back. I think that people will try us on and see how it looks those first few times. Our job is to keep them coming back. So,
Those of us with daughters know that high school soccer, like here, is, I don't know how many quality players there are, but there's a buzz around girls soccer. Have you seen that at all?
no, absolutely. And as you know, that was some of the first recruiting that I did when I got the job. It was late in the Illinois State high school season. So those are some of your first stops. You want to keep those players that are good enough to play at home. There's already, you know, a support system in place. There's some name recognition. They already have probably some tie. Somebody's aunt or uncle has gone to school here. Those are all real positives for us. You know, the key for me is just making sure that they're experienced, that they are going to be local and known, that, you know, that they have really an opportunity to play, and making sure that expectations are equal, that my evaluation of them and their evaluation of themselves is the same.
It's been the biggest challenge recruiting to a new program versus recruiting to an established?
It really just has to do with the timing of the hire, and that a majority of the 19s were already off the table from a verbal commitment standpoint. So it was really about catch up, and that's why we've had to spend some time out of region recruiting versus in, and just where there are populations of players that are uncommitted. So that has been the big one. You know, once you get them to campus, the campus sells itself. I think the athletic department and the energy that's surrounding there, the same thing on the academic side. People are excited about where the university is going and the excitement of what a women's soccer program is going to be in the classroom for us here. So all those things I think have been easy. Obviously, it's really easy from a historical standpoint. You know, somebody's going to have to be part of our first win. Somebody's going to score our first goal. Like all of those things, I think, differentiate us from everybody else that's looking at some of those players.
Okay, anything else? Great questions, guys. Thank you. We'll
Thanks,
probably
everybody.
get Grant back in January for a follow-up.